suggested I learn more about Filipinos in Toronto, Canada, the first thing I was told was that there was a huge basketball community there bringing Filipinos together. I thought, Filipinos play basketball? Neither of my parents were very athletic while I was growing up, so my lack of exposure meant that I never for once thought of Filipinos as ballers. When I was introduced to Aia and Patty, both Filipino-Canadians, both raised in the basketball community, I knew they would be the ones to help me find an answer to the burning question, why basketball?
Okay, so I have a question for both of you.
Yeah.
Why basketball? Our friend said, go check out the basketball community in Canada.
Yeah.
I was like, there's a basketball community, especially with Filipinos. Like, I had no idea that that was like a thing. I never associated Filipinos with having this huge affinity for basketball. Is this like from the Philippines?
Yes.
Did the Americans bring this over?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
So how did Filipinos learn about basketball? Well, like we guessed, it was because of the U.S. Americans who were living in the Philippines during a time known as the American colonial period. According to Wikipedia, basketball was first introduced in Philippine public schools as a women's sport in 1910. But because conservative Catholics found basketball bloomers too provocative, men started forming teams and won the first Far Eastern Championship Games in 1913. The Philippines became a member of the International Basketball Federation, also known as FIBA, in 1936. That same year, they made their debut at the Olympic Games in Berlin, Germany, where they finished in 5th place, the best result of an Asian team in Olympic basketball history. So that's how basketball came to the Philippines.
From my understanding, it did, yeah.
It would have to be.
Because I was like, well, why not baseball?
And it's with the cheapest. You don't need equipment. They would play with slippers, chanelas. You'd wear chanelas when you're playing basketball. That was what they do. Like, there were leagues in the Philippines. Their work would have their own company basketball league within the work. Like, it was that big in the Philippines where, like, they just have leagues all over the place. And then that translated to here. My uncle came, when he came, he already had a team that he was playing on.
So they basically just brought that love of basketball
love of it.
and all of the groups and everything to Canada. And I guess because it's such a recent community, that's why it's so present right now.
I would say it's just from your uncles or your dad or the people who you were around or your friends. The way that it happened was they just came and we're going to make a league. The first ever Filipino basketball league that was created in Canada was created in Toronto, and it was called Club Filipino in 1969 or 70. And then 2 years later, they were like, oh, that's a stupid name. Let's change it. And they changed it to Fil-Am. And it's like 71, 72-ish. There's 3 guys that created it. One of them, a pioneer, still alive today. The other 2, I think one passed away and the other one lives in Chicago. He also started something in Chicago, though. So in Chicago, Filipino basketball is huge as well. And some of those guys got to fight over one basketball game.
It was one basketball
One game. One game got them to say this is unfair. And so the leaders of the leaders of every team decided, I'm going to leave and create our own thing. And Phil-Can is the association that pioneered youth basketball, which then changed everything. Like, who played in Filipino youth basketball in Phil-Can, they founded North York, and he went there.
Yeah, so I was a part of that.
And they also founded Falcons. Then there's Vaughan, and then Mississauga, and then it just kept growing and growing. That's the beginnings of them in Canada. It's crazy. Like, that's the start.
Basketball is definitely like a keeper of tradition, and it's a vehicle that can kind of connect a lot of Filipinos, especially when in a place where it's a new land, new culture. You kind of want to hold on to something that is something that you're used to seeing in your homeland. I think basketball can bring that towards that kind of feeling to a lot of new Filipinos. One thing we noticed growing up in this neighborhood in particular is there's a large amount of resources that are available to newcomers if they want to get their kids involved in basketball or like grassroots sports.
You would have open gym times.
Is this funded by the government?
Government, yes.
I think in the culture at the time, there wasn't a place for young Filipinos to start playing. That's why Fil-Can was important.
Yeah.
To get young kids
A place
involved.
to play.
I think here, though, in particular, at the Bathurst-Wilson area, there wasn't as much of a culture for it, just because by the time you hit an age, maybe 16, 17, a lot of kids start to work.
Yeah, and they're not playing anymore.
They don't play sport anymore, and that kind of like fizzles out. The culture doesn't get carried on as much. So we felt like we needed to play a role in getting more kids involved for later on in life so they can carry it on and give it to their kids as well.
The communities now are all just one big basketball community. Now it's huge. So there's different people like Patrick that have initiatives that are trying to help the community in different ways.
Definitely feel connected to it a lot more now. The fact that we started a nonprofit, that definitely keeping my roots here. It's called Abolish Cause, and as short as ABC. We started a nonprofit to create an avenue for local kids in the Bathurst-Wilson area to access organized sport, mostly basketball. We started at our local high school to raise money to send to the Philippines in the wake of a typhoon. We started it with myself and 4 other of our friends who all grew up in the area. A lot of our passions revolved around the sport. A big part of our fundraising is for example, this is one of the shirts they make, and that's a big way we raise our funds to send to whatever initiatives we want to do. We run various basketball tournaments, kids programming. We just had a back to school program at our local park, gave out free school supplies, haircuts, basketball equipment, and we're just trying to create avenues so that kids can get involved in organized sport and basically the different realms that revolve around basketball as well. We have photography, we also have the fashion aspect of things as well.
So you're teaching the kids about this and showing them how to do it themselves.
Yeah, because basketball is a realm,
yeah,
but there's a whole other realm of things that revolve around it. Just trying to get kids involved, giving them an avenue so they have a passion for it, they can pursue it. We're just kind of building it ourselves because we're still kind of young people. We're all young guys.
Which is what makes it so cool, is that you're young and yet you still feel this true connection to the community and wanting to give back.
It's definitely something that we're passionate about because we see ourselves in the next generation. That was us not too long ago. So we feel like we want to create an avenue for kids who are just in our shoes so they can have a way so they can pursue their passions and pursue whatever it is they want to contribute to society or their identity as well.
And are you all Filipino?
All 5 of us are Filipinos.
How do you find the places and the causes that you're going to be supporting?
Initially, the orphanage that we donated to was actually our pastor, so our priest. So we collected shoes during the pandemic.
You said 500 pairs?
500 pairs. We had to send them in door-to-door boxes, so buying boxes. And those are not cheap to send, especially to provincial places, right?
Yeah.
So we had to sell t-shirts similar to this.
Yeah.
To raise the money to cover the cost to send it over there. And we just try to do various things. Lately, we've been trying to contribute to more local causes. We send money to local house leagues that start basketball for kids. Sort of the near and far future, try to clean our space for our local park so that kids can come and play basketball, because right now it's not well maintained. We're the people who take care of it, so we're trying to build something for the next generation that they can go there and have a welcoming space to play sports and do whatever they want. I think a good overarching goal, especially with development-wise, is just preaching participation, preaching just getting involved in something organized.
Just show up.
And once you're involved, then you can have avenues where you can pursue things, and that's what we're trying to build as well, right? But I think the main goal is just getting kids involved.
To answer your question, why basketball and why do you entrench yourself and love it so much, is just the relationships you build and the people you're around. They're your people. People that you relate to the most is in your community, in basketball, in Scarborough, and wherever you are. And the more and more that I explore other places and meet people like you had one other person in your graduating class, you know what I mean? That's so small versus us. We had a crew of people who all felt that way. And that's why, so people who didn't even play basketball would come watch the game. Gyms would be packed of Filipinos, hundreds and hundreds of people. You end up just loving it. You just end up just being so entrenched that your lives just revolve around it and being around it.
It becomes so part of the culture, and it becomes a thing that binds people together. I just don't see the culture kind of fizzling out just because it's so connected to everyone's purpose.
We see more Filipinos in Basketball Canada. I was talking to my boy, who was one of the coaches. I was like, why are there no Filipinos on your team?
Sure. So I can actually speak to that,
Play, so many people play basketball.
There comes to a point where, of course, you want to have more representation in, the Canada basketball community. But there's also a huge population of Filipino players here that go back to the Philippines.
That is the culture. They play in the Philippines because their parents would be that's a be-all and end-all. Let's do it. Yes.
Let's do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why work hard in a league here to get playing time to play against other races of people who are maybe more athletic and things like that? You got to work twice as hard.
Right.
So if you're already a star in the Filipino League, we'll bring you over to the Philippines. You'll be a star over there too. They'll just be what's the priority here?
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it was great.
I think we're just hanging here for the rest of the day.
You're welcome to.
It's the parties that my family used to have, So we just sit around, eat all day long.
Spot, yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. Fil-Am. Goodbye.